That's bullshit. It's total bullshit. There's no such thing as common sense. But there is such thing as good sense. I'm a gun owner. I've always been a gun owner. I'll always be a gun owner. Because if they're coming for your rights, they're coming for mine. If they're coming for my rights, they're coming for yours. But you know what I'm more opposed to? The Fourth Amendment has serious jeopardy of being crucified on a cross. But I gotta call bullshit on that. If 90% gave a shit, we are the only country in the world.
We've been through this so many times. We were through this with Buffalo, El Paso, of course. You talked about Newtown. And we know as these mass killings continue, we're going to hear the same things. We're going to hear from Republicans that, well, our thoughts and prayers are with them. We're going to hear from Republicans, this is the cost of freedom. We're going to hear from Republicans, there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. Why, if you pass this piece of legislation, well, that won't do anything about that shooting. And if you pass another piece of legislation, it won't do anything about this other shooting. We also hear something really gross from the same people who will desperately seek to find any crime that an illegal immigrant causes and then run it on their TV network for 24 hours a day. It's never time to talk about this, is it? It never is. They're cowards. They're such cowards. And of course, they don't want to talk about it. Just like January the 6th, like we saw in the focus group, they want you to forget about it. They don't want us to ever talk. When was the right time to talk about 9/11? Oh, I don't know, a year later? No, I would say a pretty damn good time to talk about 9/11 would have been on 9/11 when it was happening. On 9/12, how did this happen? On 9/13, let's make sure this never happens again. But these fools, well, they're not fools. They know exactly what they're doing. These barbarians, they get on TV and they say, oh, let's not talk about it now. It's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids now in our schools from Newtown to Texas are getting gunned down by military weapons, so mutilated that their moms and dads can't even recognize their faces. And Washington does nothing. Hey, Joe Manchin, after Newtown, you did something, all right? Do something. Joe, I'm kind of tired. We're friends. I'm just going to tell you, your old routine about, oh, it's always this person or it's always that. But Joe, why don't you get out in front of something for once in 5 years and start talking about what you can do instead of you can't do? Because all you ever talk about is what you can't do. You're a Democrat that got this right after Newtown. And you pushed with Pat Toomey. You pushed with him on background checks. You need to do that again. 90% of Americans support background checks. 90%. Almost 2/3 of Americans oppose military-style weapons. Almost 2/3 of Americans, overwhelming number of Americans, support gun safety laws that Congress will not pass.
I got to call bullshit on that. And not because I don't love Joe. I agree with him on a lot of things. Not everything. Don't agree with anybody on everything. But I got to call bullshit on that. If 90% of Americans supported common sense, there's no such thing as common sense. If 90% of Americans supported good sense gun legislation, if 90% of Americans supported good sense gun safety laws, if 90% of Americans gave a shit whether or not our children were dying in the schools, whether or not people were being slaughtered in supermarkets and malls, whether or not guns were being taken in to murder people in church while they prayed and studied the Bible, if 90% gave a shit, we wouldn't have one fucking Republican in office. There wouldn't be one. There would not be one Republican in office, because the Republican Party is the reason this is happening. The Republican Party and all those wonderful, enlightened people who vote for them are the reason this is happening. The Republican Party and the Republican media are the reason this is happening. This is not happening because it can't be changed. This is not happening because of the president that's in office or Democrats doing nothing about it. This is happening because of all those politicians. And some of them are Democrats, but all those politicians who take money from the gun lobby, who take money from the NRA, in order to turn a blind eye to the harm and damage that is being done to this country. We're not the only country in the world that has really, really good gun rights. We're not the only country in the world where citizens are allowed to own military weapons. We are the only country in the world where you can turn 18, walk into a store, and buy assault rifles with no training, no experience, no psychological evaluation, no jack shit to determine whether or not you're going to take that gun and go kill people in a school, a church, a synagogue, or out on the streets. We are the only country in the world that uses no sense whatsoever in determining who should be allowed to have a gun. And I hate to tell you this, but the Second Amendment is not the only amendment, and it's not worth a damn thing without all the others that give it strength. Because your right to defend yourself means nothing when you elect politicians who are undermining your right to know the truth, your right to know the facts, your right to know whether or not they're having people kick in your door to kill you or take your weapons. Because the Republican administration is also tearing down parts of the First Amendment. Actually, all of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment says that Congress will not endorse, I'm paraphrasing. Forgive me, I'm paraphrasing. But Congress will not endorse a particular religion. That Congress will not make laws that elevate a religion above all other religions. They're attacking free media by having state-run media, their own personal media. I mean, I'm sorry, if you have a media that's run by a political party, that's not free media. That's not freedom of the press. That's freedom to lie. They're attacking free speech unless it's their own free speech. And that's not free speech. Free speech is everybody gets to speak on the same platform at the same time. Debate. That's free speech. Attacking those who disagree with them and saying those people shouldn't be allowed to talk, only I should be allowed to talk. That's not freedom. That's not freedom of any kind, and it's certainly not free speech. The Fourth Amendment in serious, serious jeopardy of being crucified on a cross because of people who think that they have the right to enforce God's will upon others. I am not pro-abortion. I actually oppose abortion on a personal level. From a religious, spiritual perspective, I am opposed to abortion. But you know what I'm more opposed to? I'm more opposed to the government getting in between a doctor and their patient. I'm more opposed to the government interfering in family decisions. I'm more opposed to the government intruding on the privacy of individuals. That's what I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to laws that can only be enforced by denying the Fourth Amendment right. I'm opposed to laws that intrude on individual rights and privacy. I'm not pro-abortion. I am pro-freedom. And you can't have freedom without freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And the freedom to be a religion other than Christian. If we're going to narrow freedom to just Christian, maybe we narrow freedom to just Baptist, or just Southern Baptist, or just a particular congregation, the way they teach it. When you take away freedom from anyone, you take away freedom from everyone. You think your freedoms are not under attack because you're all for denying people a right? When you deny a right to someone else, you undermine your own rights. You undermine your own freedoms. And I don't care what God you believe in. I don't care what religion you adhere to. I don't care what church you worship at. I don't give a damn about your preacher. If God wants to stop something from happening, He's got the power to stop it from happening. He doesn't need your goddamned help. What kind of a pitiful God do you worship that needs you to do His job? If we are going to be free, we need to stand up against the tyranny of Republicans. We need to stand up against the tyranny of religious zealots. We need to stand up against the tyranny of corporate monsters who will do anything to sate their own greed. We need to stand up for each other's rights. Because if they're coming for your rights, they're coming for mine. If they're coming for my rights, they're coming for yours. It's not a good thing when anyone's rights get trampled. Anyone's. I'm a gun owner. I've always been a gun owner. I'll always be a gun owner. I am not opposed to the ownership of guns by reasonable, sound mind people. I am opposed to letting unstable teenagers walk into a store and buy a gun with no background check, no psychological exam, no need to prove that they know how and when and why to use it. I'm opposed to that. I'm opposed to the mentally ill gaining access to firearms. I'm opposed to people who have recent threats of violence or recent violence against other people being able to walk in and buy a firearm. I am opposed to the very idea that every nut job out there has a right to walk around shooting anyone they want because, well, they got a right to carry a gun. And if you got a right to carry a gun, you got a right to shoot whoever you want, right? You got a right to kill everybody that pisses you off. Everybody who disagrees with you politically, everybody who's a different fucking color than you, everybody who's got a different religion, everybody who's... When does it stop? When does it stop? When we're all dead? When the human race is extinct? This is stupidity. Absolute asinine stupidity. There's no such thing as common sense. But there is such thing as good sense. And it's time we started electing people with good sense. Not just because they're part of our political party, but because they show us, demonstrate to us with how they speak and how they vote and the laws they propose and support, that they are for us, the people, not the corporations, not the special interests, us, the people. And you're a moron if you vote just because of what Tucker Carlson tells you to vote. Or for that matter, just because of what Chris Hayes tells you to vote. They're commentators. They're not goddamn news reporters. They commentate on the news. You know what that means? That means they have an opinion and they tell you their opinion, and their opinion may or may not be supported by the facts. And because FCC no longer requires them to stand side by side and give you their opinions in a debate form, well, they're in an echo chamber, and you're listening in an echo chamber. And if you only want to hear this side of it, well, that's the only side of it you hear. Because you don't have to turn on Chris Hayes or any other liberal after you listen to Tucker Carlson or any other conservative. You can hear just one side of the argument and go, yeah, that's all good. That's bullshit. It's total bullshit. You cannot make a good decision based on a one-sided argument. You can't. You just can't. If you want to make a good decision, you gotta listen to both sides of the argument. Even if the other side of the argument pisses you off, you've got to listen to it. Only by listening to all sides of an argument and then doing your own due diligence to see who was lying and who was telling the truth, can you make an informed, intelligent decision. And if you're not making informed, intelligent decisions, stay the fuck out of the voting booth. We don't need your votes. You're dangerous. We have enough problems in this country without stupid people making stupid choices and giving us stupid politicians to make stupid laws that hurt us all. So, if you're not going to be informed, shut the fuck up and stay out of the way while the rest of us try to fix the mess that you and the rest of the Republican Party have created. And that's all I've got to say on it. I hope all of you are in good health, and I pray that all of you stay in good health. Get informed. God bless you.